Hi everyone, it's me, Diana, the TheDollFairy. Although this entry is a bit late, today's dose of doll magic will be creating a custom Pokemon doll to represent the star sign Libra in our Pokemon Zodiac doll series. So far in our series, we have Solgaleo to represent Leo, and Mega Diancie to represent Virgo. For Libra, I've chosen Lunala, the mascot of Pokemon Moon. Libra is traditionally represented by scales symbolizing balance, and Lunala is visually symmetrical and therefore has a balanced design. More importantly though, to my mind, Lunala balances out Solgaleo because one represents daytime and the other night. Libra is also an air sign, and Lunala is a creature who flies through the night on its sweeping bat wings. I started by sketching out my vision for Lunala. Although I considered choosing Lugia for Libra because of the way it balances out the elemental bird trio, I wasn't particularly inspired to create a doll based on Lugia, and I wanted to make sure that my Libra doll was as ornate and detailed as the other Pokemon in the Zodiac series. Lunala's design has inspired me since I first saw it, so I was really excited to make Lunala. And one bonus reason I really wanted to make Lunala for Libra was because of the timing. It's Halloween time, and Lunala is an elegant skeletal bat. She's perfect for this time of year. I knew that I wanted to use Monster High's Skeleta Calaveras because of Lunala's skeleton motif. Like Solgaleo, Lunala will have stars and constellations on her forehead, and a headdress that represents her celestial theme. But while Solgaleo is more of a warrior with gleaming armor, I picture Lunala as more like a goddess or a sorceress. She will have a long dress, and one of her most important features will be a cape reminiscent of her bat wings. To represent the sweeping gold crescents at the bottom of her wings, Lunala will hold an oversized golden bow and arrow. It seems that the Skeleta doll I bought has some pretty severe damage to her face. I guess I didn't really look hard enough at the photos on the eBay listing. I considered using epoxy sculpt or something like that to fill in the broken spaces, but then I had a better idea. I've seen a couple of really cool repaints on Instagram lately that utilize these patterns that look like cracks in the face. I decided I was going to try to use this scar to make something pretty on her face. I prepped the doll by removing the hair with hot water and jewelry pliers, and removing the factory paint with acetone nail polish remover. Then I'll start rerouting her hair. I think you guys know by now that I really prefer rerouting to making wigs, so I'm glad that I can actually reroute this doll. I'm planning to use some combination of these colors, ranging from light to dark, for Lunala's hair. I ended up leaving out the dark purple and black, and instead the main components will be white, gray, and a small amount of this Arctic Frost and Hyacinth blend, which I really love. The idea is for her hair to look kind of like starlight. I'm using my rerouting tool to give her white hair on the top of her head. Then I add in some plugs of Storm Gray to blend in with the white. And at the very bottom of the hair will be mostly gray. For the part line, I'm using my blue and purple blend. This ensures that the colors will stand out without overpowering the white. I really like the kind of iridescent look it has when it's finished. It really does make me think of starlight or opals or something. Now I'm going to cover up the hair with some fabric pinned into the head so that I can spray the head with Mr. Super Clear Sealant. I will start with 3 initial layers for this doll. Don't forget to always wear an industrial grade respirator mask when spraying this stuff. It's kinda dangerous. Now I can get started on the face up. I start by outlining the eyes with light pink watercolor pencil. Lunala has deep pink eyes with bright white irises, similar to Solgaleo's blue eyes with white irises. I'm also outlining the eyebrows, which will look less angry than Solgaleo's. I picture Lunala as being more serene and benevolent. She will even have a slight smile to her expression. I'm also outlining where there will be 2 little fangs sticking out from between her lips. I will also draw a line to indicate where the purple pastel galaxy on her forehead and around her eyes will end. Next, I take a dark brown pencil and create an interesting jagged shape out of the cracks in her face. I basically follow the lines that were already there while adding some visually appealing points and lines. Now I'm starting to fill in the eyes with pink. A few layers of color will make this very bright and vivid. I'm also drawing in the pupils with the same pinks and using white pencil to brighten up the irises. She looks really scary like this. Next, I start going in with a darker red/pink color for her eyes, and I trace over and expand her scar a little. Now for the pastels. I start by giving her soft purple lips, and then I start brushing on the colors for the galaxy on her forehead. Now, I learned from Solgaleo not to make it too dark initially. The white of Skeleta's skin also helps me keep the colors bright and vivid instead of too dark. I'm also focusing a lot more on purples and light blues, whereas Solgaleo's galaxy had a lot of darker blues, purples, and greens. I do use some darker blue, but I'm careful to concentrate the darker shades only in certain areas, like beneath the cheekbones, under the eyebrows, etc. This was actually a lot of fun, and it was so satisfying that it was coming out the way that I wanted it to come out. I spray the face with another coat of MSC, and then work on refining the eyes and giving them some shading. Then I add more pastels to her forehead. Then another layer of sealant. I used black to make that scar on her face really stand out. I used some dark pink to create some dramatic eyelashes for Lunala. If you look at Lunala's design, it has this little red point above each eye. So for my Lunala, I decided to give her tall lashes, with the center lash being the longest and most dramatic as a nod to that design element. I use white colored pencil to add emphasis and interest to the scar. Then I add more shading and depth to the red parts of the eyes. After that, I reinforce the pastel colors. Her face-up is almost ready for my favorite part, the stars. First, I use white pencil to highlight the eyelashes, refine the indications of a smile on her lips, and spray MSC one more time. And now we're ready. I take my tiniest brush and some white acrylic paint and start painting on the stars. I try to vary the sizes of the white dots to make the pattern look more realistic. The hard part for me is trying to make the smattering of stars look random instead of making them too consistent or evenly spaced. So when I made Solgaleo, a few people asked why I didn't put the Leo constellation on Solgaleo's head. And the answer is, I just didn't think of it. Can you believe that? How silly. Anyway, I'm putting the Libra constellation front and center, well, slightly off center to look more aesthetically pleasing, but I'm putting it right there on Lunala's forehead. I also paint on her fangs so that they stand out and look brighter against her purple lips. And after that, her face-up is finished. I'm so excited about how she turned out. She looks otherworldly and intense, but still has that serenity to her face. I'm going to remove the protective fabric. Now we can see how she looks with her starlight hair. I'm really loving her look so far. Next, I'm going to create a pattern for her outfit. Instead of starting from scratch, I take out the pattern I made for Marina's mermaid skirt as a base for this skirt. Since this doll's body is so skinny, I mean, it's a skeleton, I will need to modify any existing patterns to be more tight-fitting. Since most of the skirt will be hanging loosely around the legs because there will be slits going up both sides all the way to the hip, I can pretty much just sketch out how I want it to be shaped without worrying too much about it fitting and conforming to the doll's body. The main thing to work out here is the shape I want to create. Next, I created the pattern for the cape. This took a little while because it's such an important element, and it really had to resemble the shape of Lunala's wings while still looking like it belonged on the doll, considering the doll's proportions. I made a couple of different versions until I finally felt that the shape was perfect. Then I went about sketching the shape for the bow. It will have more of a curl at the top and come to a point at the bottom, so I started by cutting out a symmetrical piece and then making adjustments to one side. I also created patterns for the gold accents at the bottom of the front and back of the skirt. Like the bow, I will make these pieces from craft foam. I cut out the pieces using my X-Acto knife, with a plastic placemat underneath to protect my table from the knife. I'm also cutting moon-shaped pieces for her headdress. For smaller pieces that need to look thinner and more delicate, like the gold shapes that will hang from the points of her cape, I'm using index cards creased in the middle. This will help them to look like they're made from sheets of metal once they're painted gold. Here I've got all of my pieces cut out. I cut 2 of the pieces for the bow because I will be gluing both together with wire in the middle in order to reinforce the construction of the bow. This will make it sturdy and strong. I fold my piece of wire in half, bend it into the right shape, and then use fast grab tacky glue to put it all together. Next, I paint all of the pieces gold with metallic acrylic paint. The only pieces that are not gold are the mini moons that go on her headpiece. Those will be painted a dark metallic purple. Once my accents are all painted gold, they're just going to have to wait for a little while I make Lunala's outfit. First, I take my translucent violet organza, I think this is called organza, right? Which will be used for the cape. The cape will have 2 layers of this fabric. For the first layer, I trace my pattern using a yellow chalk pencil. For the bones in Lunala's wings, I will be embroidering lines onto the cape with iridescent embroidery thread. So I use a ruler to mark lines on the cape piece so I know exactly where to embroider those lines. I have pale gold, silver, and this blue-white thread to choose from. I choose the whitish one, which is called blue opal. I divide my piece of thread in 2, thread my embroidery needle, and start embroidering the lines with what I found out is called a split stitch. This is when you start with a straight stitch, and then you go back and come up through the middle of that same stitch, splitting the thread as you do so. In my Pusheen custom doll video, I mistakenly called this a backstitch, but some people corrected me, I looked it up, and I found out it's definitely called a split stitch. I complete each line carefully because any little error would show up pretty obviously with this sheer fabric. When I've finished stitching all the lines, it looks really pretty, doesn't it? You guys probably know this, but I'm in love with embroidery. So the next step is to sew this side of the cape to another layer of the violet organza. As I'm sewing the 2 layers together, I'm also going to insert these little loops of lavender ribbon at the wrists and elbows, and these will be what holds up the cape on the doll's arms. This was a little tricky, especially because the loops are so small and the placement had to be so precise, but with lots of pins, I got it all in place and sewed the 2 layers together, leaving a small opening at the top for me to turn the cape right side out afterwards. I flip the cape right side out, making sure to clip all the corners and the curves, and then to poke out the points of the cape with my fingers and with the eraser end of a pencil. Then I iron it flat with my cute little iron, and then I sew up the top. I'll add the little gold accents later, but for now, let's get to that dress. This beautiful dark purple textured satin is what I'll be using for the top part of the bodice and the skirt. I will be using more organza for the middle part of the dress, so that you'll be able to see the doll's skeleton underneath the sheer fabric. I traced my pieces onto the purple satin, and used fray block on all of these pieces to keep them from shredding apart as I sew them. I started to hem the bra piece with tacky glue, but I think the fray block made the fabric stiffer and harder to glue down. So I switched to needle and thread for the hem, and that worked fine. Here I'm stitching the front of the skirt to the top and sheer middle of the front of the dress. I pin up the hemline of the front of the skirt and then sew those very carefully. For the back piece of the skirt and the crescent moon that will go over it, I will glue down the hem to make sure that it will match up with the golden moon piece. I actually glue the moon piece to the skirt bottom first, then glue down the fabric underneath it so that it looks perfect. I decide to sew up the back of the dress onto the doll because of the fragile nature of that organza. Next, I'm gluing the gold accent piece to the front part of the dress. And now the dress is complete! At this point, all that's left to complete are the details, and I glue the gold accents onto the points of the cape, and to the ribbons on the wrists. I also glue these three-dimensional diamond pieces onto the bow for added detail. Then I use this very delicate gold thread to make the string for the bow. I basically just thread my needle like usual and poke the thread right through the bow from the bottom to the top. I knot it off at the top and I glue on tiny purple rhinestones over each knot. And it's pretty much perfect! I make an arrow for her to hold using a toothpick and pieces cut from index cards and painted gold just like the other accents. I pull the front pieces of her hair into a small ponytail in the back in order to keep the hair from obscuring the galaxy on her forehead. I reattach her head onto her body before pinning the headdress pieces into her head. And now for the part I have been impatiently waiting for, rhinestones! I start with a concentration of stones around a center point in the middle of her chest. This is there to simulate the glow that the Pokemon Lunala has, seeming to emanate from its chest cavity. I have the stones radiating outward, with the largest stone in the center and then getting smaller as they go outward. Then I go to town placing different colors and sizes of iridescent rhinestones in random spots on her cape. Now we're ready to reveal Libra in the Pokemon Zodiac. Oh, hey Nebby! You're supposed to be hiding in Lily's bag. What's that? Oh, a transformation? Okay, let's do it. Wow, who knew Nebby could evolve into such a goddess, huh? have to say, I'm kind of in love with how Lunala turned out. She looks exactly how I envisioned her, and she looks great next to Solgaleo. I don't actually have anything to complain about this time around. I hope that all of you Libras out there aren't disappointed with this late entry into the series. I have to say that I think she might be my favorite one so far. The next star sign is Scorpio. Leave your suggestions for what Pokemon you think represents Scorpio best. I hope you had fun watching this elegant skeletal bat moon goddess take shape. Make sure that you subscribe for more doll magic if you haven't already, and click on that little bell so that you'll be notified of all my future videos. I can't wait to see you again next time, friends. Bye!